Writer's block, the dreaded bane of every writer. For me in 1996, it was a personal issue. You see, I never became a writer for fame or money. I was so head over heels in love with my forbidden lover, Brent Spiner, that I became a writer to make love to him. Yes, to make love to him with my writing. I had to find an outlet for my feelings that would be morally safe as a born-again Christian and devoted Jesus follower. I felt vastly unworthy of him because he was this big star who somehow fell in love with little old me, a nobody housewife and mother who had brains and talent, but had never used them for anything except to be a wife and mother and a brief one-year teaching stint teaching chemistry and biology in a Christian high school. I'd worked as a secretary and in retail sales, and that was about it. I was just a nobody housewife and mother, a Bible college grad and a state university grad who graduated with honors, but I gave it all up to stay home to raise my son and be a wife. And I was married to a crud. But I always knew I had writing talent, so I decided to quit the practical jobs and study for my dream job, writer. Brent's courage to be an actor and his love for me inspired me. I had to make myself worthy of him. I was risking the streets to write Brent, because my husband found out I was writing him, though I lied to my husband and told him that this big star Brent never contacted me and made love to me on the phone. I would never betray Brent like that to my awful husband. I was keeping lots of secrets from my ex. It would be totally believable for me to come across as a star-struck fan, writing a big star who never called me, so I played that game to protect Brent. And I knew that Brent was crazy about me. Yet I felt that I wanted to somehow prepare to be his wife. I thought, well, I'm actually an artist deep down inside, and I think I'd be really good at writing. In fact, while in high school and while I was in tune with Jesus, I originally planned to go to Lynchburg Baptist College, now Liberty University, to study music and English. But then I got real practical and thought, you can't make money with an English and music major. So I ended up studying nursing, which I figured would enable me to afford Bible college, which was what I really wanted to do. I confess I never prayed and asked Jesus if it was his will for me to be a nurse. By my junior year, I learned I was not nursing material, and I ended up switching my major to health education at Florida State University. Basically, I wanted the fastest bachelor's degree I could get so that I could then use that to help me as I transitioned off to a Bible college somewhere, which is what I'd always wanted to do. You know, I wish I had John MacArthur's book, Found God's Will, back then, and I would never have gone off to State University in the first place, because deep down inside, I always wanted to go to Bible college somewhere. I changed my mind about where. Sometimes I was interested in Moody Bible Institute, which I visited in 1978, or Bob Jones University, or Baptist University of America, or Liberty University. But Jesus has ways of using even our mistakes. My nursing training helped me create a believable main character for my Silver Skies novels. Back onto writer's block. So I studied writing through the Institute of Children's Literature because I was impressed that you had to pass a writing test to be admitted to their program, and I passed. I ended up with Jim Murphy, an award-winning children's writer, as my writing teacher. I got information about them through the mail, and I thought Brent might have been behind it because I wrote him and told him I wanted to go back to school and study to be a writer. Anyways, in 1996, I found out about Laurie McBride. It was like the sky dropped on me. Everything I was living for at the time, which was all sunshine and light and love, turned into gloom, darkness, and confusion. Jesus! Didn't you promise me that Brent and I would get together someday without sin? What's this? Suddenly, my desire to write a literary masterpiece for Brent, to make love to him through my writing, turned into a thud. Writer's block. I told myself, you've developed some professional writing skills. Use that talent and forget about Brent. Keep on writing your novel. Franco Nero, my long-distance replacement for Brent, could use a good writer in his life. I was off my path because fear and doubt now replaced love and faith. I thought Jesus had told me through signs and the awe that I felt in my heart that Brent was part of his plan for my life, but now I lost faith in that. Basically, I became a doubter. I prayed to God for Brent, but I should have prayed for myself too and asked God to show me what I needed to do about this new knowledge about Lori McBride. But I relied more on my reason and circumstances than my faith in Jesus. I was doubting everything that God told me about Brent. Finally, in December 1999, God showed me that Lori was a Vatican agent. And one of the first things God told me was to get back to my writing. I did this for a while. But going through a complicated divorce caused me to lose faith again, and I again got somewhat off my path, though never to the extent that I did in 1996 when I first learned about Lori. I knew I'd forgiven Brent and that he was part of God's plan for my life, but I was confused over all the complications. It just didn't make any sense. I had to learn to trust God no matter what and to believe in what he promised. But as long as doubt reigned, I never really got back into my writing. God used this time to help me grow as his child, and this would help me be a better writer. But when my heart had greatest faith and love, 1991 to 1996, is when I did my greatest work as a writer. I remember thinking how free and high I felt. Oh, how I was on my path then, and God used Brent's love for me to get me to write. How Jesus was smiling as I worked on Silver Skies to honor Brent's great love for me. If I could lay it out in a nutshell, if God has called you, you need to see past the complications and believe and never lose your love, forgiveness, and faith. Then write your dream project. God will make a way. You might say, but the way my life is currently set up, I don't have time to write. Well, then do what you can. And be sure you stay on your path. Know that you're off your path if you're listening in any way to fear and doubt. If God's called you to write, consider it like a missionary call. God always makes a way for you to do his will. Another thing, you got to watch out for anger. Anger is often a manifestation of fear and doubt. Don't let anger rule your life. If you find yourself consumed by anger, you're probably off your path. Do not make decisions based on anger. Sometimes this can happen because someone else is consumed with anger and they're rubbing off on you. You may need to cut off some ties, kind of like removing a cancerous tumor. If you see someone caught up in anger, try gently nudging them back onto the path of love and life. Often this means not preaching at them, but showing them by example how it should be done. If they try to lay guilt trips on you for not sharing their anger, that's when you need to cut it off. They're probably off balance and want to drag you into their pit. You can't let them. You might say, what if they're a family member? Then you need to go to God in prayer, and you might need to make some hard decisions. Follow what makes you feel loving and free. Don't allow yourself to be abused. Yes, but all my main characters are patterned and inspired by my love for Brent. I thought back in 1996 when I learned a shallow flake, what seemed to me a fame-obsessed Hollywood slut, had intruded into Brent and I's sublime love. And Brent's awesome love for me was all I became a writer for. Yeah, Brent's awesome love for me was all that made me want to write. And that had just been dumped to hell, as I saw it. I basically shoved the manuscript and said, I don't care about this anymore. I no longer had Brent Spiner's love and awe in my heart that inspired me to be a writer in the first place. Fear and doubt ruled my heart now, though I rationalized getting off my path by saying I now was sane and no longer insane. That fairy tale loves just don't exist. Yet something deep inside me would not sit down and accept my lot in life, so I refused to report to the police that Brent had a wiretap on my phone, even when Lori almost burned down my mobile home by having a juvenile delinquent set fires around my home. Though I lost a lot of respect for Brent at this time, I did have the decency to protect his communication with me. I also knew he did not love Lori. I could tell the woman was evil. I figured to use some sort of extortion to get into Brent's life, and I wrote him off as a coward. I let him keep his wiretap on my phone. I listened to that part of me that was big and loving and forgiving, even though I was confused and filled with doubt and questions. I didn't completely get off my path. I cried my eyes out for a month when I found out about Lori, and Brent offered no explanations, and I screamed at him on the phone and told him to talk to me and tell me what was going on. Silence is all I got from him. I knew I was married and my husband was a jerk. Though I lost respect for Brent, I still respected him as a bigger person than my husband. I would learn later that Lori used death threats on me to ensure Brent did not disclose to me Lori's true nature and that she was a drug rapist. But it was Jesus who brought Brent into my life, and I never should have doubted that. Because the signs like the Northridge earthquake in 1994 and how God led me to live in Brent's hometown out of hundreds of possibilities should have told me something. Jesus is never, ever behind fear and doubt. That comes from Satan. No matter how confused you are, you must trust him and never make decisions based on fear and doubt. Listen to the love and faith in your heart and believe in Romans 8:28 and go forward in faith. Jesus would never lead anyone to become a cynic, especially about love. I should have known this. If I kept my faith, I would have understood immediately that Lori was in Brent's life not because he failed me, but because Satan used her to try and destroy my soulmate, because I was on my path and Satan was opposing Brent and I. You might say, but what's in this for me as a writer? I'm saying any decision you make regarding your writing based on fear and doubt is from Satan and will harm your writing. You might say, but a lot of great writers end up committing suicide. That may be true, but they weren't feeling that way when they were writing their masterpieces. That probably happened to them when they had writer's block. I don't believe any writer can write great while filled with fear and doubt. You got to take a leap of faith and see something bigger than yourself to keep going as a writer. When Satan screams at you that your dream world and your writing is a waste of time, you've got to believe in love. You might say some great writers expose the dark side. Yes, but you got to see your writing as a gift of truth to the world. The writing itself may not be all light and love, but your motive for it needs to be light and love or you'll turn out garbage. Helping people gain a deeper understanding of humanity is offering them a gift of love, even if your writing is dark. Wuthering Heights made me cry, because underneath all the darkness, it's all about a desperate attempt to belong, something I can relate to. It's kind of a message that we all belong somewhere that honors love, even if most don't belong to our niche. My Silver Skies the Millennium will be like Wuthering Heights in that respect. Like, I love Wuthering Heights. Emily Bronte must have felt some joy and love in her heart as she thought about Heathcliff. It was a way to bring some love and light to what appeared to be a forbidden love in her life. Writers who write for fame and money turn out trash. From 1996 to 2004, I completely forgot about my manuscript. In fact, I forgot my fiction writing skills. Though I had to stay off the streets, there were times I could have worked on my writing. But with a heart that had not received victory over doubt and fear, I didn't stay on my path enough to want to write. My desires were a mixed bag, partly spirit-filled, partly flesh and doubt and fear. I had growing to do as a believer. I picked Silver Skies up in 2008 and tried to rework it for publication because Spielberg had already made it into a movie. But it wasn't until 2018 that I ever made a serious commitment to finish what I started in 1993 to 1996. There are some advantages to long-term writer's block. Number one, you grow as a person. Two, you can pick up what you wrote and see it totally objectively, what you did wrong, what you did right, and then you grow as a writer. After watching Independence Day Resurgence and feeling discouraged over how awful it was, I said, you know what? You can fix this. Your Silver Skies is the answer to Hollywood's dilemma of horrible movies coming out now. I followed John MacArthur's principle about how to do God's will, read his book, Found God's Will, and what I really wanted to do at this time is finish the masterpiece I started and help Hollywood turn out some great movies again. And here's what I've learned from long-term writer's block. One, if God's called you to write, which means this is what you really want to do deep down inside and you have a heart for God, then God meant for you to have a break from your writing to grow as a writer and person. Two, the growth you experience as a writer and person will go into your future writings and you'll be a better writer for it. So if you're called to be a writer and you've lost your passion for your work, ask yourself, why have I lost interest in this? If your work now bores you, ask yourself, am I on my path or have I gotten off my path? Christians on their path are usually passionate about something. So what's your passion? That's where you need to go. Is your passion based on fear and doubt or love and faith? Has your life turned into negativity, fear and doubt? Or are your dreams filled with love and faith? And I've got some link to John MacArthur underneath this video. If you lost your love and faith, you're off your path. You need to go to God in prayer and search deep in your heart and find out when and where you lost your faith in Jesus. Beat it out with Jesus in prayer and ask him when and where you made a decision that got you off your path, and ask him to get you back on your path. You may need to step out in faith and courage onto a new path, and perhaps you have a lot of growing to do as a believer. But follow that part of you that has love and faith and let it lead you to become the writer God meant for you to be. Always, always listen to that part of you with big dreams, passion for love, and that makes you feel loving, forgiving, and on a high for Jesus. If that's why you became a writer, to feel like that, then it is God's will for you to write, and you have lost faith in yourself as a writer because Satan's attacking you. He's caused you to lose faith. You might say, but my writing stinks. Perhaps you're too close to it. Take a break. Read Don MacArthur's book, Found God's Will. Then when the desire to write consumes you, write what you really want to write, what God has put deep down in your heart, and trust God to show you how. He will. Don't write what you're supposed to write. Write your dream project. You might say, but I need to pay my bills. I don't have talent to write this well. Oh, thou of little faith. Think of yourself as a missionary writer, because that's what you are. If Jesus put that desire in your heart, he'll take care of you and he'll make a way. Your job is to look deep down inside and write what you're passionate about. Refuse to write to pay the bills. Write what you're passionate about. You might say, but I'm the only writer who's doing this. Then be a pioneer. If you have a passion to write and you're God's child, he put that in you. Your job is to look deep down inside and follow your heart. God will lead the way. Never lose faith. Always have love and light in your heart. Whatever makes you feel love and light, follow that as you pursue your writing. Remember those times when you felt that way and what you did as a writer during those times. Continue along that path and you'll grow as a writer and your writing will show it. Writer's block for a writer who's called to write means you've gotten off your path. Go to God in prayer and find out where your doubt and fear come from and take it out of your life. Even if you have to use painful surgery, maybe God wants you to grow as a writer or person. Ask him to show you the way. Just to always follow that love and light in your heart. And when it's time for you to take up your writing again, he'll show you how and when. Never lose faith. God will show you the way. Remember this too. That time spent in research is also part of writing a book or project. So if you can't seem to put the right words on the page, take a break to do some research. Research has a way of giving you more story ideas and making your characters more real. Don't think that just because you didn't write a set amount of words today, you failed. Time spent in research, reading, and improving your craft is also time spent on your writing. A commitment to write every day is good, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean words on a page. It just means working on your project in some way, even if only in research. Whatever you do, don't cut corners to meet a deadline. Deadlines are useful if you're a procrastinator, but make sure the deadlines help you as a writer and are not artificial or unnecessary. I don't think Tolkien wrote his Lord of the Rings to a deadline. Set deadlines that don't violate your writer's integrity, like don't make them too rigid. Keep open and realize that God may be leading you in a different direction. The only deadline you should worry about is to write your dream project in the time it takes to do so, even if it takes a lifetime. To hell with the rest. Maybe find a way so that you don't need to meet this deadline. You might need to break away from something in your life that you don't need, that's weighing you down and making writing a duty rather than a pleasure. One way I've found to maintain discipline is to be sure and do the Gail commandments every day. I have a tendency to get lost in my projects, and doing the Gail commandments helps me stay balanced. Just because you're balanced doesn't mean you can't write with passion. Just because if your body's sick, your mind won't work. So you got to take care of yourself. Consider your body God's temple. In fact, taking care of yourself might help with writer's block. I often kill several birds in one stone, and while I work out, I watch my favorite movie or video to help me with my writing. If writing isn't your only passion and you find another passion competing with it, do both or do them all. But for each day, do what God lays on your heart for that day. God's will can change somewhat from day to day. Stay open to the Spirit's leading, but always follow love and faith over fear and doubt in whatever you do. And God will make sure your writing will just take care of itself. Usually my other competing interests against my writing are in the area of ministry, where God lays a person or persons on my heart who needs me, and I need to take a break to help them on their path. You got to be careful here because there are some people who take advantage of this and demand more of your time than God wants you to give. If the person's a narcissist and they're eating up all your time and trying to put a guilt trip on you for not helping them more, then you need to learn the magic word, no. God had a dog bite me one time to get me to quit caving into my narcissist mother. My mother was getting me off my path. Her fear and doubt began to rub off on me like a cancer, and it resulted in me becoming abusive towards Brent. I can also tell you that I was not at all interested in my writing at this time in my life either. Number one thing, stay on your path, and God will make it all come out according to his marvelous will. God has great things for you. Just never lose faith. Look back on past projects where you feel you did it right and ask yourself, what was my mindset during those times when my writing was good? Make sure your mindset stays that way then. That's the mindset you need to write great. You might ask, but I don't think anything I write is great. Sounds to me like you need to learn to aim higher. Aim higher? Yeah, drop your current project and refuse to write about anything other than your dream project. Ask yourself, what is my dream project? And then do it, even if the whole world thinks you're crazy, and ask Jesus to show you how. Like my current dream project is to write an equivalent to Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. You might say, that's crazy. I never heard such bad writing advice. If you're called to be a writer, your writing will seem like the most important job in the world. You have a real story to tell. Don't get sidetracked with the cares of this world. Keep your heart large, your vision wide, and never, ever lose faith that what you write makes a difference. Remember that all you think is so important now won't make a lick of difference for eternity. God's writer, write for eternity, not for passing fame, fortune, or the cares of this world. Think of your future reader 100 years from now and ask yourself, what am I doing today to help out that reader who'll pick up my book 100 years from now? If your answer is, oh, I got something to do. I got to make sure Trump wins or that he loses. I got to crusade for a cause. 100 years from now, nobody's going to care about that. But if you wrote a masterpiece, they might care about that. The only cause that matters is God's will for your life. Do it and believe you can make a difference. Don't listen to people who tell you that anything is more important than following the love and faith in your heart that makes you believe that you can write something that'll change someone's life 100 years from now. I know there are books that make the bestseller list about politics, but those are mediocre writers. Their books are going to be dead 100 years from now. Your book will still be around if you believe in love and conquer doubt and fear as you write. You might say, I'd sure like to make $1 million or more as a New York Times bestselling author and be called a mediocre writer. If you can combine politics with love and faith and write a love story with politics in it, then it might last 100 years. I actually have a lot of politics in Silver Skies. But the reason the story is so relevant, even though I wrote it in the 1990s, is because I'm dealing with universal issues as my theme. The main story is not any politician or his or her cause, but the love story. That's why even though I wrote it as a Republican, a Democrat named Steven Spielberg fell in love with the book. If the only people who will like your book are the ones who have your political or religious views, your vision's not big enough, your story's not big enough. Sounds like perhaps you're not called to be a writer if you only write to preach to people and try to get them to hold your view through your writings. That's how Laurie McBride screenwriters in Hollywood write. We don't need sermons. We need literature. God called writers right for that reader 100 years from now, not for $1 million that you can't take to the grave with you. Look, I'm guilty. I've written political books, but I don't consider them my best work. Jesus told me to stay out of politics right now. He says that stuff isn't important. He told me Alex Jones is a nice person, but that it's foolish to get caught up in today's political debates. He said Alex needs to relax. Jesus told me to purge Alex from my online presence because it's not worth it to lose your online presence over foolishness. He also told me that Alex will be okay. Jesus says that some folks are just mad that Trump won and have Trump derangement syndrome, but that it is something you won't win at, so just stay out of it. He said debating online is like being in the Special Olympics. Even if you win, you're still a retard. That stuff like this makes no difference, really, and it won't matter for the tribulation saints. Like, imagine if Tolkien decided to write a book about Winston Churchill, a politician of his time, to try and convince England to side with him instead of Lord of the Rings. Do you think anybody would know who Tolkien is today? Churchill is dead and gone and makes no difference. today. I'm glad Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings instead of a treatise about Churchill. You saying I shouldn't care about politics? Well, I plan to vote for Trump, but I won't break any friendships with anyone who votes Democrat. Trump and we Christians are going to get raptured, and then all this world will have is stuff like my books. I'm thinking about the readers that matter. Keep your vision big. Don't get myopic. What seems so important today will make no difference for eternity. Never lose your vision. Always write for the reader who will pick up your book 50 years from now and think about how it will change their life. You got to believe your book can do it. Break the mold. Be another Tolkien.